Good morning, it's day 26, and I'm just realizing in this video at least, or at least recently, that this is my new favorite spot. I usually always sat in my recliner, but lately I've been a couch girl. I've been loving my little spot, and I only sit on one side of the couch. Like, that's Cece's side, this is my side. And I've noticed that it's like gonna take a toll on the couch though, because you know, all the cushions where I sit actively and lay and roll around and stuff, they start getting a little less, you know, like nicely shaped. Look at this one, how nicely shaped that is. And then look at this one, Amy's been laying on it a lot. It's not nearly, yeah. Anyways, that's random. Okay, so I only read a teeny bit of The Red Pony last night, so I'll be working on that today. We have a bit of a busy day. I am meeting my friend for lunch. We haven't seen each other in a while. She's a special ed teacher / para within the district. So I'm excited to spend some time with her and chat and catch up. And then Shar asked me to go to the driving range to do some golf, hit some balls, which I haven't honestly hit any golf balls in like quite a few years. I mean, probably the last time was when I went to like Top Golf or something, and that had to have been well over 10 years ago. So this will be interesting. Especially because Shar takes it seriously. I mean, she's not going to like judge me, but you know, I will probably not be doing so great. It's getting out and doing some fun stuff with my cousin. And then I really want to work on my TBR video today. I just don't know if that's actually going to happen. It's ideal. Look, I actually washed my hair in the morning when I could, you know, give it a little bit of life, versus I've been wearing it up almost every day, all the time. And then when I take a shower at night, when I wake up, it's like, wow! And so then I just put it in a ponytail. So my hair's been in a ponytail for like the last several weeks. Boring. But those are the plans for today, and we'll see how much actual reading I get done. I haven't been getting a lot of reading done the last couple of days, although I did finish Part of Your World. So, I mean, that was an important one because it has to be done by Friday. But so does this, and ideally, so would Annihilation. So let's get to it, Amy. It's Tuesday. I have 3.5 days. Okay, so I'm home and I had a great time, but I was dripping sweat. I was so tired going to the driving range with my cousin. That was a good workout. I didn't realize how good of a workout that was. I finished The Importance of Being Earnest, and this was so good. It's such a good play. I'm giving it 5 stars. It's the perfect length for the type of humor it is, especially with great actors, and the people who voiced this audiobook were so great. The humor just is continuous, and it's so funny. And it's definitely this satirical look at gender roles, at marriage and being in relationships and stuff like that, and how women are in relationships with men and how men are in relationships with women. And so it was so funny the way that Oliver Wilde, clearly the opinions he has about how dumb people get when they're in relationships. And of course it is satire, so it's just meant to be funny and poking fun at these institutions that, you know, had pretty strict guidelines, especially at the time that this was written. So I just thought it was very entertaining. I can't wait to watch the movie again, the one with Rupert Everett, and I really, really enjoyed this. So this is my extra book for Herkyed, so I gotta make sure I get that posted before the 31st, and I will have one book that I can use so I can either use The Importance of Being Earnest for 3 prompts, or for Herkyed, or I can use it for 2 prompts and then take one of the ones I already read and use that for a 3rd prompt. So very excited about that. But if you've never had a chance to read this play, imagine the time that it's written in. So be aware that some of the jokes are a little old-fashioned, but it still was so clever and fun. I had a blast with it. And I highly recommend this audio version. If you need it for like a readathon or something, listen to this one. It is so great. Okay, so I finished The Red Pony, my family history book for TBR Trail, and the first book off of my classics slash there's some fiction on there as well shelf. And I don't yet know how I want to rate this book. I want to think about it a little bit. It's one of those ones where I need to let it sit with me a little bit. It's different than other Steinbeck in the way that it's formatted, so I need to think about it a bit. It still was beautifully written, just beautifully written. Yeah, I'll talk about it more when I have some time to think about it, and then I'll tell you my rating or what have you. So technically, I'm supposed to start on Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer for my 45 before 45, my challenge prompt for TBR Trail. But I read like the first page and I was like, no, I'm not in the mood for it, especially not tonight. And I want to read a little bit before I go to sleep. So I decided to pick the next book off that shelf. I have a whole stack that's fiction, you know, like contemporary fiction, historical fiction, literary fiction. And I have this book called The Ocean's Daughter by Madison Wade that Brittany, one of my followers and friends, unhauled to me. The book is about this girl who travels on her ship, The Adventurer. She has her own boat that she's traveling on. And that's very much in the lines of something I would enjoy. It's just something I haven't really thought about much. And I was looking at all the books on that shelf and I was like, you know what? For one, it's a nice short one, which will be good for the next few days because I have a few things I want to work on this weekend that don't involve my 1 week one shelf. And so I'd like a book that I'll be able to get through fairly quickly. Also, this gives me a really good chance to pick up this book that might otherwise sit on my shelf for another couple of years, you know, and give it a chance and see if I like it. And it's still summery. We're still in the summertime. I know that everybody in my life is like ready for fall, but until school starts, we're still in the summertime. So I want to continue enjoying the summer for as long as I can. And I think that this ocean-y book will help with that. Good morning. It's day 27 and I'm up. I'm ready to film my TBR video. So I'm going to be working on that. I did go to the gym this morning. I got 3 miles in. I didn't run that much, but at least I got my 3 miles in. And then I just relaxed a bit when I got home, but now I'm ready to get to work. So I want to tell you a little bit about The Ocean's Daughter. I didn't make it very far in this. Come on. But I did read it a little bit last night. I've made it to page 19. This is about a young girl who, she's 15 years old at the time that we're learning about her. She's born and raised on a ship on the ocean. Her mother dies in childbirth and her father dies when she's 7. And she's then raised by the crew of the ship. And now we're with her at the age of 15 and she's never set foot on land because the crew is too afraid to let her get off the boat. They're afraid she's gonna get kidnapped. Maybe there's other reasons, I don't know. So she is desperate to go to land. She's read so many books, she understands what the world is like. She's never felt grass under her feet. She's never got to do all the things that you do when you're on land. That's one thing she's desperate for. And they do keep her busy on the ship. She's not necessarily a crew member, but they do give her chores and different things. And she loves that. She likes to be able to be helpful and do different jobs on the ship. She also is best friends with dolphins, and she's learned how to speak dolphin. So she can actually talk and have conversations with these dolphins. She's like, there's some sounds and stuff that are a little too hard for me to either make the sound. She can't learn those words or she can't repeat those words. And that was a very interesting aspect of this, that she spends a lot of time in the ocean with her best friends, the dolphins. It's a pretty simplistic writing style, and it's not overly flowery or anything like that, but I feel like it sets the setting well enough and it gives us a good understanding of these characters. And I don't know what the plot is meant to be at this point. It does say, dying for a dream is the most courageous act of all. So I don't know what that means. But I will say that this is a book, like I said, I got from my friend Brittany. Brittany did not rate it very high, so I'm very curious to see how I feel about this. But it's a book that only has like 800 and something reviews. So this is not a well-known book, and it's from this publishing company called Page Publishing Company in Pennsylvania, published in 2020. And I love reading the big popular books and the books that I'm really interested in, but indie books are important to read as well because you're getting to hear from authors who haven't had their big break yet or are trying to make it as an indie author. And those kind of books don't tend to get around much. Like maybe this is a local author to Pennsylvania and she just hasn't gotten her books out much because they're not highly represented in the publishing world. So far, I'm enjoying it. It's YA, and I don't think this will take very long to read. I'll just be curious to see what the plot ends up being, you know? But the writing style is not offending me in any way. And I do love a book on a ship. And I love a young girl living her life on a ship, because I know I had those dreams growing up. So I said I would come back and talk about The Red Pony by John Steinbeck. And I still don't know how I want to rate this one. It's not what you might think it's going to be going into it. It's not all about a red pony. Are they vignettes? How long are vignettes? Let me look that up. No, not a vignette, because a vignette technically is less than 1,000 words. So it's not that. But this book is split up into 4 different short stories, in a sense. It's the same child that we're following, little Jody, and it's the same family, the same farm. Everything about it is the same, except each section is a different story within the life of this little boy on this farm. And this is definitely one of John Steinbeck's more pastoral books, where he is writing about life on a farm and all the details of that and showing you the beauty of that. Because John Steinbeck, and I have mentioned this before, to me, he is a writer, he's an American writer who loves the history and the people, the everyday person. He loves showing the beauty in the small stories, in the people who don't make that much money, in the people who don't have that much in life. He wanted to show the value of the everyday American. At least that's my perception of John Steinbeck's writing. And one of the things I love about it, because you do often get little snippets into an everyday life, and yet he can still show you that there is beauty, there are thrills, there are things to care about within these small stories. The 4 sections are about different things. So the first one is about the red pony and this young child coming to terms with really difficult situations and things that happen in life, death and dying. This is a pretty bleak story all the way through. Like the whole thing, the red pony, just the book in general is a pretty bleak story. The second story is also about death and dying, but in a different perspective, and kind of like what a life is worth in a lot of ways, and what a life is worth to others. Not necessarily what your life is worth to yourself, but how people perceive a life of someone who has worked really hard, or an animal that's worked really hard and done everything that you could possibly want it, and it was amazing, incredible in its time, but now that it's coming close to death, how do we treat and respect that life? Then the third little short story within this story is about a child learning how what they say and the things they do have consequences. And I don't know how to explain it more than that, but basically our little Jody learns that he has these strong perceptions and has made the people around him, he's put them on pedestals, he's treated them certain ways, he's expected so much from them, and they want to live up to his expectations, and how to come to terms with that sometimes when you get what you want, it's not exactly what you thought it was going to be. And I think that that was a very interesting lesson. There's some really difficult subject matter in this, so definitely look at trigger warnings before you go into this book, for sure. And then the fourth and final section was also about, not about death and dying, but what a lifetime means. How we hold on to the past, how some people value their own lives, and what it means to have a legacy within your lifetime, and how that can be both a blessing and a curse sort of thing. So this was a very complex little set of short stories within a story, and they weren't always pleasant, and they didn't always end like with a clear, like there's a clear message, but you're kind of like, well, what was going to happen next? Like, what's going to happen next? And you don't always get that. And that's sort of an interesting aspect to this. I did enjoy it. I enjoyed it a lot. I definitely didn't love it as much as I've loved other John Steinbeck. And so I think for this one, although I did love aspects of it, my enjoyment overall of reading it is probably going to be about a 3.75. So either 3.75 or a 4-star. I don't know for sure yet, but I think in this instance, yeah, I think it's about a 3.75 if I'm just like thinking about the first number that comes to mind that matches how I feel about this book. I do highly recommend John Steinbeck. I always warn people to look at and think about the author at the time that they were writing these books, because there's content in historical fiction in general that's going to make you uncomfortable. And you have to think, of course, about what you want to read when it comes to historical fiction and take into consideration the time period that it was written. And that's not like an excuse, that's just an actuality of older fiction. So I think that John Steinbeck at his time was very forward thinking, but he still wrote during the 1920s and 30s. So just take that into consideration when you're reading his stories. As a random aside, I just looked up The Importance of Being Earnest, the movie, because I want to get it from my library system. And it turns out the Rupert Everett movie I was thinking of was An Ideal Husband. I've seen that one. I actually haven't seen the movie adaptation of The Importance of Being Earnest, except it does have Rupert Everett in it, and one of my favorite actors, Colin Firth, and it has Judi Dench in it, and I'm like, why haven't I seen this movie? So I'm definitely going to try and get it from the library, or figure out if I can get it streamed, and I'm very excited about it, actually, because it's getting better and better, and knowing how much I liked the play, I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch these actors act the parts. You're so precious, yes. Okay, so I've read a little bit further into The Ocean's Daughter, and I'm definitely seeing some issues as far as the writing goes. And this is definitely starting to feel much more YA, especially in the style of the writing. There are just some lines in here that are really cheesy, and sometimes the writing in here is a little obvious. You're kind of like, yeah, obviously, that has to be the case based on all the things you've already told us. So there's maybe a little bit of over-explanation of certain things, but then it's not very descriptive and it's not hugely in-depth. So it's moving along at a fast pace. I just am getting a little irritated by our main character because, I know she's a teenager, and teenagers can be really frustrated, and don't have a lot of patience. And I feel like she's being rather ungrateful, and she's getting away with a lot of stuff that I'm like, I hope they start calling her on that, because that kind of behavior shouldn't be allowed. She's being a bit of a jerk. And I know that a lot of kids rebel in their high school years. Like, I totally get that. But she's part of this crew, and she needs to start acting like it. And I'm sure that's going to happen at some point, but the section I'm in right now, she's just acting in a way where I'm like, And so that's a little hard to read. It's a little hard to read. So I was like, do I really want to keep reading this? It's not horrible. It's not great. The writing is not great. I'm just noticing more and more things where I'm like, However, it's an easy read, and it's not like I'm hating the process of reading this. I'm just kind of irritated with our main character. She's not likable at the moment. So maybe as it goes along, there'll be enough of the adventure and the ship stuff that I'll be like, yay, okay, this is better. But it's definitely no Ship of Shadows. Like, we're not getting quite that same level of enjoyment at this point. Okay, friends, it's late. I'm tired. I'm going to bed, and we got home really late tonight, so definitely not going to the gym tomorrow morning. But I danced enough tonight to make up for not going to the gym tomorrow morning. So I had a wonderful time, and this DJ was so good. Totally, like, hip-hop, R&B, but great, like mixed old stuff with new stuff, and did such a good job of blending things. The transitions were fantastic. Like, this was a really good DJ, so we're definitely gonna go see him again. So I'm gonna go to bed, but if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up. There's my thumb. And subscribe so you can see what happens tomorrow. What's gonna happen tomorrow? I gotta make more progress on The Ocean's Daughter. I'm too tired to do any of that tonight, though. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you later. Good night.